And we have arrived at the black sheep of the series. Alright, so on day 5 of 13 for the 13th, we are taking a look at Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, released in 1985. This comes 1 year after the final chapter, which that name just gets funnier as time goes on. And this one was supposed to be, as the subtitle says, a new beginning, kind of moving away from Jason and everything else. So this movie takes place sometime after Part 4, and I don't know if they ever actually say how long it's been, but obviously Tommy Jarvis has grown up a good bit, and he is being taken to a halfway house, and obviously he has some really bad mental stuff going on. He has these dreams about Jason, which is how the movie starts, with Corey Feldman reprising his role. Aside from his mind playing tricks on him at various points in the film, this is the only time we actually see Jason in the movie, and even then, it's a dream, so it still doesn't really count. And this is the only movie in the series, aside from Part 1, that doesn't actually have Jason in it. And yeah, Part 1 had the ending with Swamp Boy Jason coming out of the lake, but again, that was supposed to be a dream that Alice had, so Jason technically wasn't physically there. But yes, Tommy Jarvis is taken to a halfway house with other people around his age, and a murder happens there, where one of the teens murders another one, and then a string of murders starts to happen that really resembles what happened with Jason Voorhees. And that's really the plot. I do kind of appreciate that it is something a tad different, at least with the whole halfway house angle, even though it still does kind of get into the basic Friday the 13th stuff, so on the whole, it's not really all that different. Some of it is definitely been there, done that, but the big revelation that we see at the end of the movie is that this character, Roy Burns, who pops up a couple of times throughout the film, he's an EMT, was the killer. It turns out that the boy murdered at the start of the movie was his son, so that just gets him to go on a killing spree, even though he never actually kills the person who murdered his son. Kind of weird how it plays out, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I actually kind of like Roy. I don't know what it is, maybe it's just the fact that it's something a little different, and I kind of dig the idea of there being a copycat killer of Jason, especially because even though obviously he's trying to look like Jason, he does have a bit of a different look, because you know, he has kind of the one-piece jumpsuit, kind of like Michael Myers would wear, and his mask has blue chevrons instead of the red that Jason has. Just a nice little way to differentiate the two. Not to mention, he gets a lot of kills in this, and some of them are pretty brutal. As mentioned before, Tommy Jarvis returns in this one, and he's fine. He's a little too quiet and just weird sometimes for me, although that's also kind of the point, so I can't really fault it too much. There's the character Pam. She's okay. I don't really have much to say about her. She's just kind of there to me. There's Reggie the Reckless. Like him a lot. He's very endearing. He cracks me up. I like Reggie's brother Demon and his girlfriend a lot. They appear very briefly in the movie. They're really just there to get killed. I mean, again, kind of a usual thing in this series, but in their brief bits, I like them. There's a very funny character, Ethel. She cracks me up. She's obviously pretty nuts, and you know, just some of the stuff that she says, especially to her son, I love, and especially because her son sucks. I hate this guy. He's loud and annoying. That scene where he's just riding on his motorcycle around the house is just, oh my god, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I hate that scene, and I could not wait for him to die. Otherwise, you know, again, the characters are just kind of there. There's not too much to them. A lot of the characters at the halfway house are okay. I like the guy with the stutter just because I can relate to that. I do feel kind of bad for him when he gets turned down. So yeah, there's a pretty decent cast of characters in the movie. At the very least, they're pretty entertaining, but like usual, they're just not really a whole lot to them. But I do think it does help this movie a decent bit just to have some entertaining and kind of wacky characters. Now to the kills of the movie. I like a lot of them in this. Roy is pretty savage with stuff. I'll just go ahead and say it now. My two favorites are the one where he wraps the belt around the dude's head and around the tree and tightens it. God, that one makes me hurt. It just looks so bad, and I've never really seen anything like that before. That one's just hardcore. Love it. And then of course there's the one where he sticks the flare in the dude's face and he's briefly lit up like a freaking jack-o'-lantern or something. Visually, that one's pretty cool. And also the one with the garden shears. That's a good one too. Otherwise, all the other ones I can think of, just kind of like usual, are basic slasher stuff. Not really bad or anything, but just not like, oh my god, that's super cool. So this movie is kind of known as, in a way, kind of like the trashy one, even though in a lot of ways you could say that about most Friday the 13th movies. But this one definitely has just sort of a skeevy feel to it with a lot of the nude scenes and stuff like that. And part of that probably comes from the director. Just go look into his history and some of the stuff he's made and you'll see why. And also, I feel like a lot more than some of the other others, this one does kind of have a lot more of a low budget feel. And honestly, some of the effects and stuff aren't really that great. Like for me, anytime the Dream Jason pops up, he just looks off. Something about the mask doesn't look right. And a lot of the kills, just with some of the fake stuff. There's a part where Roy stabs a chick and you can clearly tell that he's stabbing into like a pillow or something like that. So yeah, this one definitely has a lot more of that low budget, kind of cheaply made feel to it. Having said all that and definitely sounding negative about that aspect, it doesn't ruin the movie or anything. It's just a lot more noticeable, I guess. Whereas I really do feel like a lot of the past movies have done a pretty good job of using the low budget to its advantage or hiding everything, even though you get stuff like the eye popping out in part 3. But still, I think they did a good job managing all of that. Whereas this one, it just definitely feels more noticeable to me. But this one kind of has a bad legacy of sorts just for having the copycat killer. You know, it's not Jason at the end. That doesn't really bother me. Again, I kind of dig that. I know not everybody does. You know, it's a Friday the 13th movie without Jason. It's like, well, the first one is too, even though Pamela's still a Voorhees. I mean, at least the guy looks like Jason. I don't know. I don't mind. It's still supposed to be in sort of the same area as Crystal Lake. You have Tommy Jarvis returning. And then again, you have a killer that is at least dressed like Jason. Just on the whole, that aspect doesn't bug me. Then there was a big setup at the end that part 6 will not follow up on, which is sort of Tommy going nuts. And at the end, he puts on the Jason mask, where I think it's the Roy one. And it's implied that he might now be trying to kill people as Jason. And it's not followed up on, probably just because this movie didn't get a great reception. But also, I just feel like that wasn't the way to go anyway. Especially because the movie tries to kind of make it out as like, oh, is Tommy the one actually doing this? Like throughout the movie, even though he's pretty clearly not. It sucks because I kind of like what they were trying to do with Tommy in this, but then there's stuff like that that just makes me say, no, he didn't do it right. So, A New Beginning, I definitely feel like it is a tad overhated, and maybe it's even underrated a little bit. It's not the best slasher movie you could watch, and it's certainly not the best in this series, but for me, it's not bad. So what do you think of Friday the 13th, A New Beginning? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know down in the comments. And gear up for tomorrow as we take a look at Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, another franchise high. As always, a big thank you to everyone for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Have a good one.